guys, welcome back out to part 2 of our 2-week series we got going on right now. We had the first episode last week, and then this week we'll have the new episode. And we shared last week that we were going to talk through some things, just the three of us around the table. But then coming this week, we were going to have guests on the show. Well, the show. Why do I call it that? I guess it's because I hear so many other podcasts refer to it that way.
Sometimes it is a show.
If they would have heard everything prior to the recording of today's episode, they would have definitely. I'm not sure what kind of show they would have referred it to, but
we're in the chaplain's office. It's confidential.
That's right.
Privileged information.
Clergy confidentiality.
Yep.
Chaplain confidentiality.
19.2.271. If you want to be specific, don't worry about it.
Yeah. So don't ask. If you see us, we encourage you to reach out. Don't about that. Period.
I will say I feel a lot more positive starting out this episode than I did last week, and I just want to thank you all for the guidance you gave me. I know I was kind of...
you were negative Nelly last week.
Yeah, I was a bit of an Eeyore to start things off, but I'm in a better place now. So
that's good. I'm glad. Well, guys, the three of us are here as normal, but as we promised, we have a guest at the table. And so what we want to do is we're going to give him a chance to introduce himself, tell us a little bit about who he is, and then we're going to dive into today's subject. So take it away, man.
Yeah, so my name is Josh Sheeler. I work for the City of Salem Police Department. I'm married. Been married, it'll be 20 years this November. We've been together since 2001, married in November of 06. We have 3 kids, one teenager, one soon-to-be teenager, and one that thinks she's a teenager. Yeah, it's just a pleasure to be here. I've really been looking forward to being here today and listening to the podcast last week and picking up on a lot of things. So just very appreciative for the invite this week.
Yeah, man, we're super excited to have you here. We've been talking about having different people on, and one of the things that we're seeing in response to the podcast is officers who are definitely wanting to hear from other people who walk in their shoes. We walk alongside of officers, but we're not officers. And hey, so just real quick, you said you work for City Salem Police Department. How long have you been there? What do you do? Where do you work division wise in there? Just give everybody just a little bit of a breakdown of what you do there.
So I have 20 years and 7 months completed now, total of service. I started out in the Roanoke County Sheriff's Office, working in the corrections side. Currently serve as a platoon commander, lieutenant there at the police department, in charge of Bravo platoon currently. And I've been a little bit of everywhere inside of the agency over the course of my career. So
yeah. So now you're at this point, after 20 years, you're in the wild and crazy section of the daily patrol.
I am, but I am still. I'm still, enjoying my time in patrol. It's, it's what I signed up to do originally. Starting out, we all started there. And I don't know what the future holds as far as where we may go after this patrol assignment and whatnot. But just enjoying it while I'm here. And it's kind of it's a different feel once you cross off that 20. And it's just it's nice knowing that accomplishment's been made, and then it's okay. What's next? And so we're just focusing on that now.
So Darren and I met you roughly about 5 years ago.
Right.
The city brought me on as a volunteer chaplain, and also Darren came on at the same time with SHIELD, and we got a chance to start getting to know you back then, and then we had a chance to start getting to know your family a little bit I know Darren did through some, and Garrett too, through some SHIELD events, and so we've had a good chance to get to know you, and then me stepping on board with SHIELD last year, had a chance to spend way more time now rather than just the 1 day a week that I did back as a volunteer before SHIELD. But man, it's been cool. It's been cool developing this relationship and getting to know each other. And now it's awesome having you at our table. So, and actually brought up having you on today because we had a conversation. Last week's episode, we talked about the toll that negativity takes in the police world on officers, on their families, that kind of thing. And when we were scouting out that episode and kind of planning that out, I told these guys, I said, man, this is exactly what Josh and I have been talking about. We've had a lot of conversation about this. In fact, that same week that episode released, you and I sat in my office and had a conversation about it, about that very thing. And I just told him, I said, man, I know the guy needs to be in on this episode. So super excited that you're here to talk about this today.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate it. And, I did listen in, last week's episode. And as much as I love Darren, it didn't sound like he was too thrilled about having a guest today. But now my understanding is that it's changed. Now he has seen the error of his ways last week. And
That's right.
He's chose to be positive today.
I'm in a better place.
There you go.
I'm genuinely glad you're here.
Yeah, I really am glad to be here.
Positivity's a choice, right?
It is.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been neat seeing all this grow, getting to know, all three of you guys, meeting, Adam and Darren at the same time and just kind of growing that. And then obviously meeting Gareth through that. And then of course, Scarlett, and now my kids can't be around without, So, hey, we're going to go do something with Shield. And the first question is, Scarlett going to be there? It's like, yeah, Scarlett will be there. You'll get food. And then they're all in. But it's been great getting to know you guys and growing that relationship. It's hard to believe it's been 5 years at this point.
That's
hard to believe,
it's unreal.
Yeah.
But man, it's been a blessing.
Yeah.
As we start, I might just say thank you. We talked about in the last episode, if somebody has done something that's noteworthy, one of the things with positivity is let them know that. Yeah. And as a lieutenant, I don't know that many people do that to you. Yeah. I think we told the story last week. I talked to a lieutenant, a supervisor, that they had no understanding that they had changed somebody's life. Yeah. That had never gotten back to them. So I just would like to say publicly, thank you. Several months ago, SHIELD responded to a pretty significant incident, and we were out of town for an extended period of time. And you actually messaged our spouses appropriately and said, hey, thank you for letting your husbands do that. Just know that we are praying for you. Yep. That was really cool. Yeah. That made them feel very, very loved and involved.
Yes.
That meant more than I can probably ever say. Yep. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not a seeking self-praise or anything like that. That's literally, you guys mean that much to all of us, and it would not be possible without your spouses. So we want them to know that they're appreciated just as much as you guys are.
Yeah, that I can't tell you what that meant to me, because honestly, when that came through, I was taken back by it, because I was like, wow, like somebody gets the sacrifice that our families make.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, there I go. I'm going to cry. Oh, man.
Geez, I'm shocked.
Yeah, I know. For those of you who may not know, my eyes leak quite a bit, especially this time of year, the allergies and things, the pollen. That's all right.
Call it what you want, Darren.
Yeah, brother man cries over good cinnamon rolls. So I don't know that we blame that on seasonal allergies.
That really meant a lot to our wives, and it meant a lot to us to know that people cared. And for me personally, I don't recall that happening before, where someone took the time to message my wife when I was out of town and helping with something. So yeah, again, thank you. Truly, that meant a lot.
Yep. I got a screenshot from my wife, and she said, she said, she always talks about, my wife says this all the time. She's like, I feel like I'm just your wife. You're always the ones on the front lines. You're always the one everybody recognizes. And she said, I've never gotten anything like this. And she said, this meant the world to me, So seriously, man, like from my heart, it's like that's a huge deal. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Shield would not be possible, not only without the three of you, but without the support of your family. So we just don't want them to go, unnoticed or feel like they're behind the scenes, because they're not.
That worked. Yeah. My wife felt very loved and very included. So thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But as we dive into this episode, what we've been finding, again, is that people are okay with chaplains. They can tolerate us in certain amounts. But what's really neat is to hear someone who has walked in their shoes. And it's a shame when people pretend that they've walked in somebody's shoes. Nobody likes that. But what I've heard you just say, you've had a pretty tenured career in law enforcement. Yeah. I don't know the average of officers that make it to 20 years. So you're a survivor in that. Right. No doubt you've seen a lot. You've had a lot of successes. You've had a lot of failures and everything else in between. Yep. Can you talk to me just from your world and your perspective? From our lane as a chaplain, what we see is that negativity is a problem throughout law enforcement. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm at just a whole different point in my life right now. But yeah, throughout the course of the career, it takes a toll. It takes a toll on you, and there's negative perceptions from the public. There's relationship issues. There's stress. There's work stress. There's home stress. There's everything in between, and it really does take a toll on you. At the end of the day, yeah, you wear a badge and a uniform, but you're a human underneath all that, and so it can't not affect you. Like this, it's scientifically proven this career will actually change the chemistry makeup of your brain over the course of a 20-year career. So you're not the same person as when you started out. So it is really easy to fall into those negativity, like, oh, what I do doesn't make a difference because we're still having these issues, or, oh, I'm not appreciated, or whatever the case may be. But it's really, really easy to fall into those. And then kind of like you guys were saying last week, like, it's just, that's the easy way to live life. And so then it becomes contagious. And the fact of the matter is, especially in the patrol realm, if you're working 12-hour shifts or so, or even if you're not, you're generally spending more time with your coworkers than you are at home with your spouse or your family. Yeah. So it's really, really easy to just let that kind of overtake you and who you are, it creeps in slowly. But eventually it just kind of takes over.
So thank you for explaining that. Let me ask this. When did you, in your career, I think everybody's different, but when in your career did you realize that this thing called negativity was an issue?
Oh, man. So it's really kind of situational. I feel like, there are times where, we go through periods where it's like, oh, well, the budget's not there and the market's crashing and all these kinds of things. And so like you go through periods without pay raises and everybody's like, oh, this is so negative, and so like you see that, but that's temporary. Mm-hmm. But really noticing where about over the last probably 3 to 5 years, it really seems like just law enforcement as a whole, the negativity that's around it right now internally seems to actually exceed the negativity from external, in my opinion. Where,
can you say that again?
Yeah, so the negativity inside seems to actually exceed the negativity outside. Like we're post George Floyd and those kinds of incidents, but like nobody's rioting, nobody's and even if we do have a protest, it's a peaceful protest and that kind of stuff. But so like it's almost like we're more negative than the perception that the public has of us right now.
So what I heard you say is that the greatest enemy that you face now in law enforcement in this area of attitude and just the overall morale of the department is within inside the ranks.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wild.
Yeah. It's almost akin to, I've been fortunate to be able to teach at the local academy for a number of years now. I always say they keep having me back, and I don't know why, but as long as they keep asking me, I'll go. But, I was just talking to the class recently, and I said, it was about mental health, but I was like, just a side note. I said, this academy trained you how to survive out here on the streets, and you have to treat every encounter as this person could possibly try to kill me. I said, but at the end of the day, statistics will show you that that's just not the case. Like, you have to be prepared for it. However, we're training you how to live on the street and how not to get killed on the street, but we're also not training you on how not to, at the end of the day, take your life or get to the point to where, you just live in such negativity and such darkness that we lose more law enforcement officers to suicide every year than we do to the hands of the bad guys. And that's a problem. So, but anyway, all that feeds back into that negativity.
Wow. So we're at the police academy here in Roanoke. Our academy is about 26 weeks. I think some of the other academies maybe just a little bit shorter, but around that. With all that time, what are you seeing that regionally, what are we doing to stop this? You mentioned officer suicides. They're more likely to lose their life based on something internal, whether within the department or within their own life and mind, than having a suspect in their life.
Right.
What are we doing for that?
I think we're starting to make progress. I'm seeing some glimmer of hope. I know most agencies around here have peer support teams in place and those kinds of things. And if not, hopefully they've at least got an EAP program. But there's also, I see some classes taking place that are kind of shaping up and starting up here at local academies where we're touching on the mental health topic and those things, and we're seeing administrators and leaders and supervisors in this field that are really buying into wellness and not just like, okay, you're physically fit, but like, are you mentally fit? Are you fit to be here today? Are you in a good spot? Like, I never would want an officer to feel like they can't call me and say, hey, I'm really struggling today. I'm dealing with some stuff and I'm not there mentally. And fear that I'm going to, have to tell my admin and take their weapon from them and put them on leave and prove that they're okay to come back versus like, hey, let's just take care of you. Let's make sure you're okay. So I see some of that. And that's given me hope, that we're making progress.
And I know, like not trying to elevate anything, but I know like he's been on the forefront of this. I mean, he was the backbone to Salem having peer support team and having all of those things put together. So like it's one thing I've been, since I was able to climb in here, has been able to try to step in and help him in any way I can to be a piece of just another tool in that realm. And so, and one thing is I know you and I have talked about is making those kind of things active and work,
right.
Things for these guys' benefits, for all these officers that we get to serve, so that they can know that it's okay to recognize the times that you're not okay.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of times this is kind of the first tip of the domino, the first domino that's knocked over, that the negativity starts down a path. And then once all these, critical incidents and things start piling on top of that, it's just kind of like an implosion.
Yes.
And before long, they're in a place that they never thought they would be. And the last thing we want to do is for them to fear that they're not going to have a career. We just, like you said, we just want to be able to take care of them. And so we got to be able to, do the right things to take care of our people,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about last week how, in the departments that we're serving and departments that we've gone everywhere, there is a lot of negativity, a lot of complaining about things, and sometimes that negativity is expressed in hilarious ways.
Yes,
honestly, I mean, if we're being real, but it's always to the detriment of somebody. Like we're making fun of somebody, or we're being so critical of an easy target. It's like it's easy for us to take pot shots at command staff, let's say, if they're not in the room. So we're just being ultra critical of everything, just negative about everything that's being decided or that kind of thing. Or from your experience, from what you are seeing, like how does that take a toll? Just like it seems so innocent. In some ways, it's just, a lot of guys will just say that's part of police work. It's part of the culture. We're going to complain. We're going to be negative. But what is the toll of that as that continues?
Yeah, it's this has always been a part of law enforcement since I've been around. It's grown and it's really kind of spiraled out of control, I feel like. And when I'm speaking here, this is not, me speaking specifically to my agency. I am seeing this everywhere. I
Yes.
teach it at an academy that hosts a number of agencies. So when I go there and I teach there, or just through the connections that I have at all these various agencies throughout Virginia, it's everywhere. So it's not, I'm not speaking on behalf of my agency specifically. I'm speaking on law enforcement specifically. So, but yeah, it's definitely, it became that, well, admin made this decision and somebody runs with the negative end of it. And essentially what you're doing at the end of the day is, there's two things that cops hate: change and the way things are, right? And
that is so true.
I mean, and that has been the one constant my entire career. We hate the way that things are, and we hate change. But really, sometimes those changes are necessary, and you weren't there, right, when the decisions were made. You weren't in that office. You weren't privy to what they knew. And at one point here a while back, I had a former chief tell me, he's like, you don't know what you don't know. And he's like, sometimes there's decisions that are made and there's factors to be considered. And if you weren't around that table for that discussion, you don't know. So really what we're doing is we're undermining our administration. And really it starts at the top and it trickles all the way down. It's just like, when somebody chooses to leave or somebody retires or whatever, no matter what, it always trickles all the way back down to the rank and file, all the way down at the very end. And I feel like that's how negativity is, and it's furthering this staffing issue that we have. It's really, in my opinion, playing into not being able to effectively recruit and retain because of just the continued negativity that we see. Like who wants to start a career and join a career and it's all on negative, from day one.
True. Yeah, who wants to join a career where you have how many GPSs now that track your body cam, your radio, your car, your KDT, your MDT? Like,
Right.
There's all these things that are now accountable. Now, everything you do in a 12-hour day is recorded.
Yeah.
And we can play it, not feeling what you're feeling in the moment. We can play in a room and we can look at it and go, did they make the right decision?
Right.
Can that one moment out of a 20-year career be put on the news media? Can you survive something and now your name and your family's name are all over the place?
Yeah.
There's nothing, that's just the external side.
Right.
And what I heard you say, which was wild, is that what you're seeing is that it's the internal side that's more costly to people.
Yeah.
And that's wild to me.
Yeah.
And I think back through, I just was having a conversation with somebody, and we may have brought it up on a podcast before, but they had listed a person off who was in a command staff position, and they started just hammering them. And as a chaplain, like, welcome to our life.
Right.
We hear all of that. And so part of our job is we want to listen.
Mm-hmm.
But part of it, too, is you do need to challenge somebody's perspective. If they don't have a correct perspective, I do have to reframe that very
Right.
gently.
Yeah.
You talked about the chief saying you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It was a gently way of saying, like, you're going to undermine my position
Right.
by doing that.
Right.
I began to ask them, I said, in that position, which happened to be a patrol supervisor, I said, name one patrol captain that you loved. Do you think, like, man, that guy had it together? And they couldn't name one. I said, so maybe that's a tough position.
Yeah.
Maybe that is a really, really hard thing.
Yeah.
And they saw it for a little bit. They're like, I guess we're not excusing bad leadership. We're not excusing any of that. But the internal stuff, we just eat it. We eat our own.
Yeah.
And that's awful.
It is. And you're 100% right. I had that, the ability to have that conversation one-on-one with the chief at the time. He trusted me. He was one that really helped me develop in my career as well. So we were able to have those conversations, and he's able to kind of, kick me in the butt with just one little sentence. You don't know what you don't know. Like, hey,
it's true.
You weren't there. You don't have all the facts. Like you can, and to me, I've always, in my positions of leadership or supervisory positions, I've always said, I don't mind people asking me why. Like, I look at it as it's a privilege for my people to question my decisions as long as they're doing it the right way. Sure. Because I want them to learn the why. So I've always said there's a difference in asking why to challenge versus to actually learn. Mm-hmm. And so as long as that's in that spot where it should be, where it's asking the why to learn, I'm good with that. But we seem to really focus on the why to challenge. And we're doing it behind closed doors or behind backs rather than having those one-on-one difficult conversations or like, hey, I really don't understand where we're going with this. Can we talk about this? And I venture to say there's any leader in any position inside of a local agency that would say, yeah, hey, I might not have time right now, but let's schedule that. I want to sit down and talk to you and show you where we're thinking, and this is how this will play out. But we just take the easy path, and we sit there and we sit around and line up, or we sit around at lunch and we sit, wherever it may be, and we just kick every decision that's made, and it's really, really detrimental.
It's like Scripture told us not to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like in Matthew 18 when we talked about conflict. Shameless plug for our conflict podcast, the episode there. But Scripture is very clear. If I have something with my brother that I just don't understand, maybe we go face to face and say, hey, I don't have the information you have. Here's how it's hitting my living room. Are you willing to unpack that?
Yeah.
As a leader, I don't know that any good leader worth their weight would buck at that.
Right.
I think they would smile and go, thank goodness somebody wants to learn.
Yeah.
And that would be refreshing. I think of going back to your question, a little bit of what you said about the retention issue. across the nation, we're experiencing in law enforcement a huge retention issue. And in one of the departments, again, we don't speak on behalf of just one department.
Right.
We get to serve several with SHIELD, and we get to respond across the state. In one of the departments that we were working with at the time, we rode with a lot of the officers on their final ride when they were punching out and they were no longer going to be at that. And in that year, there was double-digit numbers of officers leaving. And we got the privilege of riding with them. And so we would say, what is your reason for exiting? Is it the everybody watches my body cam? Is it that the moment I live through a shooting, my name gets published and now my family? What's the biggest deal? And the majority of them said it's the internal struggle within law enforcement.
Yeah.
And they left one agency and they went to the other just to try to figure out if the grass was greener. It's a huge retention issue. I was reading in a book actually this morning about this topic, and it was a study out of Harvard that talking about what are the effects of it. A study out of Harvard, it was a pretty long tenured study, said that the mortality rate of people that have a negative outlook, they're 9% to 10% more likely to have a sooner death.
Mm-hmm.
So 10%, that's pretty significant. Mm-hmm. Something that we could change with a thanks journal, a decision to not look at just the negative piece. Pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm glad you brought that up, because what you're saying with that, and again the internal negativity and eating our own and those kinds of things, we have seen that a lot and heard that a lot from officers, and I'm just reminded again and again, whether we're talking about our own households or our work family. It's so true with my personal family. Like if my wife, if my daughters, my daughters are grown now, but when my daughters were still home, if my wife and I and our daughters, if my family, if we're strong and doing well and we're good with each other, then it didn't matter what other struggles or battles I might be having outside of the walls of my home. If my family life was strong, I could withstand the other stuff, and it's the same. It works the same way, I think, with the work family, with the Blue family. If you're strong inside the walls of the department, it doesn't really matter the things that are going on in society. There are times that society is more supportive of law enforcement, and there's times that they seemingly that loud minority of people who get plastered all over the media. At times it's more difficult, it is more difficult at times. But if things are okay inside the walls of the department with your Blue family, then you can withstand that stuff. But I think we've stated, I think we all agree that there's a lot of negativity in departments. Again, not any one department. This is something we see everywhere. What are some things that you have personally found helpful for you to kind of push through that negativity and find some positive things to hold on to, or what have you done personally to combat the negativity that you hear or you are around over this 20-year career?
Well, and this is, I don't want to go astray here by any means, but I think this all plays into how I'm viewing negativity and how I'm combating it. Going back to what you just said about, the family and like within those four walls of home, as long as everything was good there, like you can make it through whatever else, because that is your support system. I can deal with the other stuff. Here a while back, I was at a training where an instructor was speaking. He had a very long career in law enforcement. He'd done everything local, federal. I mean, and the guy was just an amazing, amazing instructor. But one thing that he said, no matter how long my day was, the only clock that mattered is when I punched in at home. And
wow.
And I was like, man, I was like,
Ouch.
Holy cow.
It's like, it's so easy to have that 14 or 16 or 20 hour day, and you go home and you just want to hit the couch and like veg out. And it's like, you see the dirty dishes there, and you see like, you know, like your family's already had dinner and you weren't there. And, you know, it's so easy to be like, oh, well, y'all couldn't wait or whatever. And like, I mean, just have all this. And it's like, there were for so many years, and I thank God for my wife so much, because she's put up with so much over the years for me. I truly never have deserved her, and never will. But you know, it's to the point that I'm like, I look for those moments now when I get home. I look for, you know, like she's not having to ask, hey, can you help do this? Can you help do that? And it's like, no matter how tired I am, like this is what truly matters at the end of the day, because, you know, law enforcement is a prestigious career. It is. It's a calling. And I am very, very thankful and humbled to be a part of this for so long. But at the end of the day, when I leave this career, it's just a career. Like it's that home is what matters. So with that being said, it was probably about a year and a half or so ago, my wife really started pushing me. She's like, we need to get back into church. We need to get back, you know, and to get the kids back involved in church and everything. And honestly, I had an internal battle going between me and the Lord. For months, he had been pulling at me, and I just kept, you know, no, I'm ignoring it. But I felt the pull. And so he spoke through her. And, you know, a little over a year ago, I was like, you know what, I've done everything I can. I've chased after, you know, the accolades. I've chased after promotions. I've chased after money. I've chased after anything and everything that this life had to offer that I thought was going to fill that one void. But, you know, I knew it all along. But finally, I'm like, you know what, that void is Jesus. And you know, so a little over a year ago, I just completely surrendered to God and just completely rededicated my life to Jesus, and it's you know, hey, not my will but yours at this point. So that has really put me in a whole different mindset when it comes to dealing with negativity. You know, it gives me something to look forward to each day. You know, when I wake up, I'm literally on my way into work, and you know, at some point, either when I'm getting ready for work or I'm driving into work, it's no longer, oh man, here we go, you know, another 12 hours. Now I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you that I have a job. You know, thank you that my bills are getting paid. I know that there's a paycheck coming. I know we have a difference to make we have a chance to make a difference in our community today. Thank you for my leaders that are leading me. Thank you for those that are still developing me. Like, it's literally just a mindset of thankfulness. And it's an attitude of gratitude. And that has really helped me overcome negativity. You know, the other thing is really, it comes down to three different things that I made note of. You know, awareness, challenging negative thoughts, and then shifting the focus. And that's what it comes down to for me. It's, you know, like Gareth, you said, you know, last week, we acknowledge the bad. Like, it's okay to say that bad is bad. That's okay. But it's not okay to dwell within that bad. It's okay. That's bad. How do we fix it? How do we make it better? Let's get an action plan started. So it's just the awareness of seeing that, hey, this is headed towards a negative path. This is not going to be constructive for any of us. You know, and there's times as a leader that you might have to sit there and go, okay, guys, you guys have the next 5 minutes. Complain all you want. Doors closed. Complain all you want for the next 5 minutes. And then you end the timer and you're like, all right, we're done. Now let's make a difference. Let's figure out how to fix it. Like, at some point, you got to stop complaining if you're not bringing solutions. You know, that's just where we're at. You know, and then just challenging those thoughts, asking, you know, is this truly accurate, or am I just feeding into something that I had heard? Like, I heard something a while ago, and it really stuck with me, and I've used it several times here within about the last year. But it's, in the absence of information, people will create fallacy. So, like, you know, it's kind of like the telephone game in kindergarten. You know what I mean? Like, so, and then it's questioning that negativity. Like, are we adding to it? Are we making it worse? You know, was it just, oh, well, we're getting a 4% raise this year, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh, they're taking 4% away from us this, you know, by the time it makes it all the way around, we tend to add to things. So it's challenging that. Like, is this accurate, and is it going to be helpful to be negativity sometimes can be helpful, because we see things and then we say, okay, but now we need to challenge it, and how do we fix that? That's really what it all comes down to me. And then it's shifting that focus, and it's focusing on the positives. You can't control things in life, but you can control how you respond to them.
Yep.
Correct. I always say, like, for men and women who live and die on details, man, if y'all don't spread some rumors. It's like accurate reporting will either end your life or save it.
Yeah.
And yet you ask, I heard somebody the other day say, like, man, this person in this meeting, they just did this, this, and this, and they cussed us out. And that was hard for me to hear. And so I'm like, well, thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah.
You know what my question was? What words did they say? What actual curse words did they say to you? I can't remember. Interesting. Okay. So let me ask that question again. Did they curse at you? They were yelling. No, that's different. I'm sorry that they yelled at you. But it's like, man, we will let that stuff. So now across the department for years to come, man, that guy has a hot temper. He'll curse you out. And he never once did it.
Yep.
So I don't get it.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy too, because of things like that, how it will affect the relationships within that workspace?
Oh, absolutely.
Because what I've oftentimes seen happen is wall immediately built, wall never comes down. That person,
no grace.
From then on, that's just it. It's like you just said. It's like, oh, they did that. That was 5 years ago.
Yep.
But I haven't let that go yet. And so it's affected that for the last 5 years.
I tell you something that's initially is funny, but at the very base level, it's like sadistic and awful. Man, I hate to even say this, but in one of the departments we serve, there is someone who intentionally will go, hey, Josh, Adam really has got something against you. He hates you, and just walk away. And they do that on purpose, and they'll just watch both of them fight. And they were telling me story after story, like, this person, they hate each other. You know why? And I will watch them do that. And I'm like, that is awful.
That's terrible.
If we didn't have enough negativity on our own, now you're pitting.
To intentionally create it like that?
Intentionally.
Holy cow, man.
That's terrible.
And kind of like, with what Darren was saying, that's our family at work.
Yes.
Like that's our, we talked about how important family was at home, and in those four walls, the family at work is just as much important in those four walls of that building. Adam and I had a very candid conversation here a while back where I was asking him, not just specific to my agency, but again, as a whole, like where is it that you see, because you guys are in a completely different viewpoint than what I am. And obviously what our agency administrators are in and the patrol officers are in and everybody in between. I said, what's your take? Like, are we all on the same page? And then he's like, man, as a whole, it seems like everybody is like, each division is its own team.
Yeah.
And each floor within every agency is its own team. And I'm like, man, we're wearing the same badge. We're wearing the same patch. Like we should be cheering for each other. Not pushing false narratives and the such and spreading, these negative issues to where it's just creating so much issues within the agencies here. Like there is at no point, I don't care how you feel about who's running your agency, you should never at some point go, oh man, I can't wait till he's gone. Like I just, almost wanting them to fail.
Last week you said, Gareth, on the last episode, you said every day you wake up and you got a can of gasoline and a can of water, and you have the choice to which one you're going to pour. Yeah. And I'm just thinking in this, like in my mind, like I'm very much a visual person, right? That's just how God created me. I learn very much better visually. And right now what I'm visioning is a whole lot of people running around the building with a bunch of gas cans and fire just spreading down the hallway. Yeah. With this kind of stuff, it's like we're literally burning our buildings down. Yeah. But we're doing it with people instead of buildings. It's like we're just burning each other down. For a lot of times for misunderstandings, completely inaccurate information, fallacies, gossip, just at the bottom foundation of that, just negativity. Yeah. And that can get very hurtful.
So the good news, to be positive, well, we've talked a lot about the negative. The good news is this is easily preventable, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Super easy. Talk to us about that. So we talked about the gasoline, the water. We can have the decision to make. We're not victims of our emotions. We're not victims of our environment. As officers, you're taught that you can control and dictate that. The For those that are listening to this and going, yep, that's me, or yep, that's my agency. First, like, welcome to the party. You're
Right. Yeah.
Grass isn't greener on the other side.
Yeah.
You're not alone
Yeah,
in this. Again, thankfully, Shield has had the opportunity to respond throughout the state, and I think everybody's poop stinks a little different, but it still stinks nonetheless. And so,
And I dry heave every time.
I didn't think we were going there, guys.
yeah, the grass is not greener. People are still people, and I honestly
that's
think
right.
there's a spiritual problem that we do need to address. Honestly, this is what the enemy does. He gets us to fight internally so that we can't fight externally. He does that throughout all of Scripture. We see that the enemy, if he can defile and attack us internally, that we will never, ever make a difference externally. And so there is, as Scripture tells us, there's an enemy that roams about like a roaring lion, and he's seeking whom he can devour.
Yep.
And so John 10:10, there's a thief that comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And we see that. We see the evidence of that. Our officers will not ever make an impact in the community. Talk about community-based policing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't fix the negativity, that community will not ever be corrected, right? But the flip side of all that is what we want to talk about. So John 10:10, there's a thief that comes to steal, kill, and destroy. There's not a period there. But Jesus says, I have come to give life more abundantly. How do we as believers, or those that are listening that are not believers, how do we begin to give life and to start to change this?
I think part of that is just that kind of looking inward, doing that self-check. Let's be honest, we all need to check ourselves from time to time.
Sure.
And if you've noticed that you've just been generally unhappy, if your relationships at home are suffering in any way, shape, or form, I would really encourage you to look inward. My marriage went through some rough patches over the course of the years. This career really took a toll on me personally. And at one point I finally said, hey, I'm going to invest in myself, and I'm going to go start seeing a counselor and work through some things that was all job related. And I realized like I was taking that stuff home and letting it bother me even when I was off to the point to where my wife's like, we're not the enemy here at home. Like, you're not questioning me. Here, like you're questioning a suspect.
This is not an interview.
It's not. It's not. But yeah, so I think a lot of that is just that self-check, like look inside and be honest.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I think a lot of people feel like, oh, well, do I have an anger problem? Well, that's okay to look at. Do I have, this problem or that problem? That's okay to look at. Am I a negative person? Oh no, I'm not willing to, there's negativity in all of us. So I think some of it is that absolutely that awareness. I am not the poster child for Christianity. I have come a long way in the last year in my walk with God, and I'm very, very thankful for that. It has been hugely impactful to me. By all means, I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody else whatsoever. But just my faith has allowed me to walk in a different way in these negativity. So look for those outlets. Last week you kind of talked about those, having those battle buddies. And like if somebody's extremely negative all the time, is that somebody who I want to go into battle with? Is that somebody who, if I get my leg blown off and are they just going to tell, oh, well, you're just going to bleed out, like it's no big deal? Or are they go, hey man, you're good, you're going to be okay. Like we're going to focus on this, so it's kind of those, it really is that. And the three of you guys are that for me. I have some friends that are inside of law enforcement that are that for me, but I've also been working on relationships with some people outside of the law enforcement, which has been really like cops hang out with cops, and that's just all we're around. And so again, it breeds that negativity, but it's almost like it's a fresh breath of air because you're kind of seeing like there's life other than just law enforcement. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Like this has been my life for the last 20 plus years at this point. But there is life outside of this. So I think it's that focus as well. So we start to address it. Several years ago, I took a course and they talked about area of concern versus area of influence. And so if you think of two circles, like one really big circle and one much smaller circle, area of concern would be the big circle. Those are the things that concern us. Those are the, the budget, the staffing levels, the equipment, the vehicles that we're driving, all those kinds of things that we're just so concerned with and we want to complain about. But how much influence do we really have? Yeah. Like as those that are complaining. Yeah. How much influence do I have on the budget at my age? Zero, right? So instead of spending, 75% of my time focusing on that big circle, I need to spend 75% focusing on the small circle and only allowing 25% go to the big circle. So we kind of need to flip those things. So we need to start challenging ourselves like, hey, this is outside of my realm of control. Does it really deserve my time and energy to really just be negative and let that affect the entire rest of my day? Is it worth that?
Wow. So if guys would just ask the question, if something is like eating them alive and they're ready to go to war about it, is this in the area of something that is concerning me? If it's eating you alive, we'll probably just say, check the box, yes. Mm-hmm. Then the second question is it in my area of influence? Mm-hmm. Can I actually do something about it? If the answer is no, we probably need to surrender that.
Right.
And move on.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. That is so good. And there's all of us and of course we're talking to men and women who like to be in control.
Yeah.
But the truth is there's not a whole heck of a lot of things that we truly have control over. So that circle of influence that you mentioned, that circle of the things that we really can have, and I wouldn't even say control, but that we can have an impact on, that we can have that influence on. It's a much smaller circle. But like you said, when we can actually focus on those things that are, you mentioned earlier, we can't control the stuff that's going on, but we can control our responses. We can control our reactions to it. We always have that choice. And if we can break it down to that, where when we have that moment of crisis where those two things are meeting, where we have this negative situation, this negative news, and then we have a choice to make. Am I going to go down that path and pile on with that, or am I going to take this a different direction? Like you were mentioning earlier, like reframing perhaps at times, reframing, sometimes, that can be seen in a negative light, but that reframing things can be a very positive, correct way of dealing with some of those situations and making it more of a positive thing. And I was just thinking about last week, Gareth, you issued a challenge at the close of the episode to text somebody or contact somebody that has spoken into our lives or done something positive, something that we appreciate, something that we have noticed or that kind of thing, and let them know. And we had that example that you shared earlier that Gareth brought up about you reaching out, Josh, to our wives. And look at the impact of that single act, doing something positive, the impact of that single act of doing something positive on our wives and on us. How life-giving was that? Yep. And I'm just thinking about that one act. Again, it gives me hope that in our departments, for those of you who are listening, whatever department you are a part of, how much of an impact might a single act of doing something positive, of drawing attention to something that is good or admirable and right and noble, and drawing attention to that and expressing some appreciation or genuinely just quietly thanking somebody, what might be the impact of that? I mean, just looking at that single act is giving me an incredible, incredible hope of what might be able to happen in the departments that we're a part of.
I was just thinking as you were talking, there are men and women that do listen to this podcast that are retired. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about within your law enforcement agency, you can do blank. Thankfully, you're looking towards retirement. Yeah. You're seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. You've crossed over that 20. Some people listening to this have crossed over that line.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
They don't carry the badge and gun anymore. They don't have that community to fight for. And we've heard from them that's a hard thing to transition to. You are a leader in your community. You're a tip of the spear, mm-hmm. and then you turn in your badge and gun, and you're done.
Yeah.
No more traffic stops. No more summons. Yeah. You can't run into that stuff. You lose that community. one of the things that we've done in one of our departments is create a forum, if you will, a group for the retirees. And maybe if you're retired listening to this, maybe you can take some of this, because that negativity as you exit, when you hand the badge and gun in, it's not like, man, the sun shines brighter. Like, it's, wow, I now feel lighter. Like, it, in some regards, it's a weight lifted off. But that pattern and rhythm and negativity, no doubt, will follow you into retirement. So maybe for those that are listening to that, maybe you could get some battle buddies that are also retired.
Yeah.
And begin to develop a culture of, hey, man, what's some good things going on in your life? I know that we're not together working the streets, but what's 2 things that you're loving to do in your retired life?
Yep.
Well, man, I just miss it. No, I miss it too, buddy. But what's 2 good things that you got going on good? Well, I'm able to mow my yard more. That's awesome. I drove by the other day and it looks sick. So you get to start seeing that. So just maybe that's a challenge for those that are retired.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. I recently attended a retirement luncheon with one of the departments, and it was really neat to see. You know, there's kind of within that retirement group, you had like pockets of different generations of officers. You had the guys who had been retired for decades, and then you had guys who had been retired for a matter of months or just a year or two. But yeah, everybody likes to reminisce. Everybody talks about the good old days, or the old war stories and that kind of thing, things that were done and got involved with. But we do want to look at the things that are happening now and have some things to look forward to for tomorrow. And Gareth, I think that's an excellent idea for some of our retirees to maybe connect with one another and encouraging one another and pointing out those, giving some attention, giving some focus to those things that are happening now in their lives that are positive, that are good.
Well, I think that's good to hear for the people that are working, because they're working. The goal is to work towards retirement, right? Mm-hmm. And so you remember when Mark Gilbert was here and shared with us about retirement, one of the things he said to us, that I actually was talking to my dad about this because he's just recently retired, is don't retire without a plan. Mm-hmm. You need to have a plan when you retire. And so as you're listening to this, like some of these things you need to be doing now while you're on the job, but you also need to be thinking about, I've got my battle buddies now, but when I retire, I need to make sure I got some battle buddies when I retire that's going to help me walk this as well. So huge for our retirees now, the ones, because I know, like you said, we know we've got some that are listening, but also for those that aren't retired, be thinking about as you're headed towards retirement, especially some of you that are on that, that back end of things, about pre-planning and get that plan together, for this, for when you hit there.
I like what you said too about involving, we'll use the term civilians.
Yeah.
It turns out civilians are people too.
Right.
They go through stuff as well, but that's one of the reasons why oftentimes we don't know what God would have in store for Shield. We didn't know that several years ago that we would have 3 chaplains in a podcast, but God has opened the door. But one of the things people ask us is, would you ever start a cop church? Like, pretty cool. And I think we would get along very well with that. Turns out what you guys need is not to go to work on Sundays as well. Right. So if you ever ask a law enforcement spouse, would you go to a cop church? What will they say?
No.
They talk about working up. Why would we go to so when you interact with civilians, they do have a perspective that is completely different. They have never gone through those things. So in your battle buddies, it's probably reasonable to find some people that are just outside of law enforcement.
Absolutely.
Even in retirement.
Yeah, mine here lately has really been my men's group that I'm a part of through my church, and we meet Monday nights, Monday evenings, and they've just been, it's such a great group of guys, and I mean we've got from young to old and everything in between. So just leaning into them, they know what I do, but we don't talk about that. We talk about life, not work. So
can I ask you a question about that? Because for some officers maybe listening, that the thought of getting together like that with people outside of law enforcement, well, they just don't get me, they don't understand me, or whatever else. How long, just curious, and we haven't talked about this, I have no idea what your response will be to this, but how long did it take you to feel like you were a part of that group and like they kind of, you were just, you built a bond with them and felt like, hey, this is a good thing. This is a healthy relationship and a good thing for me to be a part of. How long did that take for you?
Yeah, I will say, literally the very first meeting I went to, I could not have felt more welcomed to be a part of that group.
Wow.
And going around making introductions and all that and sharing who you are and what you do and all that kind of stuff. And it was just it was an extremely welcoming feeling. Probably about 2 to 3 more meetings after that, I was like, man, this is it. This is what I've been needing. This is and I've told them, I said, guys, I appreciate this group so much, because I feel like I can come in here and just completely just be an open book, and we're not judging each other, but we do have that relationship, as a brotherhood through Christ as well, that we're sharing these things through as well. So it may not be the brotherhood through law enforcement, but like it is very, very refreshing. I just can't speak enough to how my re-involvement in church and my dedication to Christ has really just changed so much for me and for my family. It's just been an absolutely awesome thing. So yeah, I would highly encourage people, seek out those, wellness is more than just physical, right?
Correct.
Wellness is mental and it's spiritual as well. I would also challenge that we make it a box and we include financial in there as well, because we want healthy hire to healthy retire, basically. And so I think it's those 4 things that we all need to focus on.
You got these bumper sticker statements that we just need to capture and make shirts out of and stuff.
Yeah, we want you to, not to head into a dark area towards the end here, but we do know that 16 months is the average that we collect paychecks retirement in law enforcement. And like we talked about earlier, if you leave here with that negative attitude, you're going to shorten that even more. We want you to retire healthy. We want you to come in the door healthy, and we want to keep you healthy all the way through. So I hope we just, as agencies throughout the entire valley and everywhere that's listening, I hope that we just continue pushing towards that and really just focusing on those 4 cornerstones.
That's awesome. I think we're seeing people be aware of it more, which is one of the first steps you said. There has to be an awareness,
right?
And I don't know that there's many people that would say yeah, pretty positive fella, pretty positive career, pretty positive department.
Yeah.
So that we're aware now. I think a lot of resources are being spun up to challenge some of this.
Yes.
So that's really encouraging to see. Talk to somebody in command staff that had a very tenured career, and they were saying, in my tenure of law enforcement, I didn't have any of this. So you're going to have to help me get used to dealing with this. And that's why we're here. That's why SHIELD is here to advocate for that and to interview and grab people like you. And thank you for sharing your story. We didn't ask you to share any of that, thankfully. This is just what was on your heart. So I appreciate you using your career as kind of an example of what can go in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been great, man. Josh, again, I just want to echo thank you for opening up. Thank you for talking. Thank you for taking the time. I know those days off are treasured, and so I appreciate you coming on one of your days off to spend time with us. We really appreciate appreciate you being here, man.
Pleasure's all mine. This has been absolutely awesome. I made a couple pages of notes that I thought I'd reference, and I probably hit about 2 points out of my notes. Other than that, it all just came straight from the heart.
Welcome to every week with us.
Shoot from the hip.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So, well, guys, I believe that's going to wrap it up for today. So this last 2 weeks has been great. I hope this has been encouraging for people who are listening. We really hope that this will spawn something new. Maybe this will help start, if nothing else, maybe we'll take that word, Garrett, that he mentioned. Maybe this will raise the awareness of things we need to be looking for. Maybe this will give people something to be looking for or looking towards and trying to see, can they recognize these things that are happening. But anyway, so.
Yeah, and please look for the positive. Look for those good things that are happening in your department. Look for those positive, good things that are happening in your life. And highlight those things for yourself, highlight those things in each other, your battle buddies, the people around you, and let's make those things become contagious and get some momentum going that way.
This is why I think I should get a ferret.
Oh, Bernie.
Seconded.
Listen,
I'm serious. It could positively change so many lives.
The look that I just got from Darren. I feel like that's the look he gets from his wife.
I'm not trying to rob the podcast. I'm just saying we could change lives with Slinky.
I don't even know what to say anymore. I know several officers out there in multiple departments are advocating for this. There are dispatchers. There are people really wanting this ferret thing to happen. But
there's a move.
I feel like I'm sticking up for Gareth's wife right now. I
that is true.
Can I say I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I think you're focusing on the negative and not the positive.
My man, I knew we invited him for this.
I will say I am positive that if Gareth shows up with a ferret in his home, bad things are going to happen.
I mean, there's a chance she could like it.
Yeah, you never know.
Or you end up with dinner.
Hey,
well, oh boy, and this is how we end.
And I'll say this: hey, listen, we've been talking about having the wives on to do a podcast. I think it would be fantastic to have his wife on here and just ask her directly about Slinky, and let's.
She's kind of shy.
Let's see where this goes.
Maybe we shouldn't have her on the podcast. I don't.
You know,
kind of a bashful lady.
If she wasn't working right now, I would call her and we would record it through here so people could hear her response. Man. If only she wasn't working.
Thank goodness for that.
You know, I see some things in the works, so I hope everybody's listening in on this. Stay tuned because you never know when the episode's going to drop when we have the wives on here and specifically Courtney and see what she has to say about Slinky.
Yeah. In the meantime, you're going to have to hold off and wait. Well, we will keep you posted. So keep listening. We'll catch you guys next week.